everyone, welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's embroidery tutorial, we're going to do something that is super popular. Probably one of the most popular things done on embroidery machines. Today, we're going to do an adorable kids applique t-shirt. These are so fun to make. They are one of the most popular items you can buy. If you go on Etsy, if you go on pretty much any embroiderer's website, they're going to have customized children's applique t-shirts. You could also do this on adult t-shirts, but for kids, it definitely is just a little bit more fun. So we're gonna walk through how to do this. Now, all of the applique designs I'm showing you today are from Hooked on Applique. The owner was sweet enough to reach out to me. She offered me the entire library, so we're just gonna run through it. You can actually go check out her website and you can buy the entire library for a very low price. So, tons and tons of design options, so many design options. This is one of them. I did add my own text to it. I did the Egg Hunt 2021 for any little kiddos that are going to be going on Easter egg hunts this spring. In today's tutorial, we will once again be using a 4T kids t-shirt. I picked 4T because I feel like that is probably the most requested size. Obviously, onesies are really popular, older kids are popular, but 4T seems to be what the most requested size is over on Etsy and on smaller businesses' websites. So I will have links for everything down in the description. I will have links for these t-shirts. So let's see, these t-shirts are from rabbit skins. Luckily, they are not made from rabbit skins. They are cotton and polyester. 99% cotton, 1% polyester. So this is what we're going to use today. It is advised you always pre-wash your t-shirts before you embroider on them just because they can shrink. And the last thing you want is a whole bunch of embroidery detail on your shirt and then the shirt shrinks and then it looks all puckered up like that. So if you're not already a subscriber to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, anything at all you want to say, leave them down in the comment section down below. I'll have a couple little timestamps for this. There's really not a lot to this. It's actually a very simple tutorial, but if there's just one part of the video you're interested in, check these chapters down below and it'll take you straight there in the video. Okay, let's get started. So before we really go down and look at all the material, I just want to talk about stabilizer for just a moment. So in embroidery, having some sort of stabilization to our, shirt and vinyl, whatever we're using is really important so that we can get the most perfect stitch out. With t-shirts, I've found people do it a lot of different ways. I've seen the saying, if you wear it, don't tear it. So don't use tearaway stabilizer, only use cutaway stabilizer. But then I've seen some businesses who sell a large amount of these t-shirts and they use tearaway. I think it's just personal preference. I don't think that the rules are that strict and I think you can get away with a lot. So actually on this version here, I used what I thought was mesh cutaway, but it's actually mesh wash away, which was really interesting. So let me just tell you how this works. So I hooped this. I'm going to show you how I hoop my stabilizer and everything, but I hooped this and then I added my t-shirt, stitched it all out, and then I brought it home and I flipped it wrong side out. And I was going to iron on some backing over the stitches so that it wasn't so rough on the skin. I do like that idea of doing like a cover up on the back that's really soft. But as I was ironing it, I noticed that the front of the design started puckering up like this, real bad. Like it looked very bad. And I was getting a little sad because I thought this was going to be a throwaway shirt. So I was cutting it and I was cutting it and it was still just all puckered up. So what I actually did was I threw this in the washing machine last night. Just, warm water with a load of laundry, and then I threw it in the dryer, again, hot dryer with a load of laundry, nothing special. And when I took it out, I saw that all of the stabilizer was gone. So it was a wash away mesh stabilizer. So here's the thing. Now it looks great. I mean, it looks fantastic. I was able to press it. I don't have any puckering. It looks really good. So I know that if you are selling these, you probably don't want to wash them after you embroider them. But if you were making these for, your family or personal friends, as like a gift, I think that the wash away mesh stabilizer works really well. I just give it a wash after it's done, and then you don't have any stabilizer at all on the back, which is really nice because it cuts down on bulk. And then after you wash it, if you want to do some of that no-show cover-up, you can just cut off a piece of that and then stick it on and be fine. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need is something you're going to embroider on. Like I said, I'm using this adorable little size 4T t-shirt. I will have a link for where I get it down below. It's a great t-shirt. It's not too thin, not too thick. I really love it. And then you're gonna need some sort of a stabilizer. So here's the thing, like I said in the beginning of the video, I used this wash away mesh stabilizer on the first t-shirt. And while I thought I had ruined it by doing that, it actually turned out really, really great. So let me see if I can just give you a little bit more of a close-up. So you can see here's the t-shirt. Obviously it's wrinkly, I've been moving it around a lot, it's all wrinkly, but this is the t-shirt I made, and if you look on the back, you can see there's no stabilizer whatsoever. So now if I want, I can just put a layer of cover-up on this and it's just perfect. It's not very thick. You know, the stabilizer is going to add some thickness to the back of your shirt, and if it washes away, then it's great. So that is an option I think that you should definitely play around with. Grab yourself some mesh wash away stabilizer and give it a try, you know, and see if you prefer that, because it's really great. But for today's tutorial, I'm actually going to use this mesh cutaway. So this should not dissolve if it gets wet. I mean, we guess we'll see, won't we? And then, like I said, after you're all done, if you want to cover up the stitching on the back to make it really soft, especially for little kiddos, I know they can be picky about that kind of stuff. This is just a cover up. It's really, really soft and drapey and nice. And all you do is iron it on the back. And I'll show you how to do that. Okay, and then here's just the basics that we're using today. I'll be using a mighty hoop. These magnetic hoops are perfect for every embroidery project, honestly. They are 8 by 9 inch. You need to use this on a multi-needle machine. I don't believe these will work on single needle machines, at least mine especially will not. If you buy these, you need to make sure you buy them for the right type of sewing machine. I'll be using the Madeira thread today. I just have some regular Kai fabric scissors. Some snips and tweezers are kind of like my go-tos for everything embroidery, just to really get in there. And then I have 3 different colors here of heat transfer vinyl from Cricut, and this is what we're going to be using for the design since it is an applique design. I also have a little scrap piece here of just regular vinyl, which I'll be using for a very small part. I'll show you, you don't need to be too picky about this. In this applique design, I did not use any heat transfer vinyl whatsoever, and actually right here, this green stuff is felt. So you use what you have. You can use fabric here. If you have a nice applique satin stitch, you can use fabric, you can use heat transfer vinyl, you can use regular vinyl, you can use felt. You have a lot of options here on fun stuff to play with. I'll also be using this tape. This is Transport 3M tape. You actually get it in the pharmacy department. And this is just a great tape to use for holding down anything in embroidery, but I'll be using it to help hold down the stabilizer around the hoop. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is hoop my stabilizer. Now, not everybody does this. Some people just kind of put the stabilizer in after they put the t-shirt on. Some people like to fuse their stabilizer to the t-shirt. It is a lot of different options here, but this is what I did on the first one, and it's what I'm gonna do today. So first thing is I want my hoop to have the little, you know, knockout here going down towards me, and this will be the top of the t-shirt. And I'm gonna flip this over so that the letters are on the bottom. I'm now gonna grab my mesh cutaway, and I'm just gonna lay it over so that I have a nice big piece. There we go. And then I'll just trim it down. And I don't know if it's necessary to tape this down, but it makes it easier for me. So I'm gonna flip it over so I have the wrong side of my hoop up. I'm gonna wrap over the sides, and then I'm going to use my tape here to just tape this down. I just don't want the stabilizer bunching up inside the shirt while I'm attaching my hoop. So I just tape this down. Again, I don't know if this is really necessary, but it worked for me. Right here is where the neck is going to be, so I'm going to tape this like that as well. Here we go. So now that's prepped. I'm going to set this to the side while we get our shirt ready. Okay, so the first thing I like to do is iron the shirt. So just get it nice and flat. We don't want a wrinkly shirt. We don't want a wrinkly anything whenever we're working. We don't want a wrinkly any surface when we're embroidering. So get it as flat as possible. There we go. And now what we want to do is find the midpoint of our shirt. So we're just going to take our shirt and fold it in half. I'm doing it back sides together. I'm lining up the seam on the arms to help me find that midpoint. So the seam at the top and the seam at the bottom of the t-shirt. There we go. And that should give me a nice good midpoint. I'm going to flatten it out, and then I'll just press just like that. All right, and now I have the vertical midpoint. You could do this as well for the horizontal midpoint if you'd like. You can just fold this in half so you can get a really good idea of exactly where your center is. All right, so there is the center of my t-shirt. Now, I might not want my design on the center of my t-shirt. I might want it a little bit higher depending on how big it is. So the center mark is really helpful, but you don't have to kind of center your design on this if that's not the look you're going for. I'm going to grab an air erasing marker, and I'm just going to put a dot where that intersection is. And like I said, I might not center the design on it, but this at least lets me know where the center of the t-shirt is when I'm at the embroidery machine. So now I'm gonna grab my hoop that has a stabilizer on it. Now, one thing to think about, if you have a really small neckline here, you might wanna embroider this on your machine upside down. You probably don't want the machine pulling on this neck. So we'll go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna flip my hoop so that the nub part here is going to be on the bottom of my embroidery surface at the sewing machine. So since I'm going to embroider this upside down, my nub is going to be towards the neck. So now I'm just going to insert this in the t-shirt, and now I can use the midpoint fold that I made with my iron on the top here to help me center this. And I can see my little midpoint fold here is a little bit to the left of the center of this part of my hoop, so I'm just going to move it over a bit. And then I'll push down on the shirt to find, there we go, that's good. And this is good. All right, so now my hoop is centered inside my shirt. Now I can take my top hoop and just snap it on. See, there we go. Now it's all good to go. And on the back, you should have the back side of your shirt wrapping around so that we're only embroidering through the front of our t-shirt. See, you could give this a little tug if you'd like. I wouldn't, because I really don't want to stretch out my shirt, because then when you are done embroidering, it will stretch back and be kind of wrinkly. So I find the, magnetic hoops work just fine at keeping everything really taut. So now let's take this to the embroidery machine. Okay, so I have all of my colors loaded. Since I have to do a lot of cutting and applique, I'm not even going to add floats. I'm just going to set this to automatic manual so that it'll stop after each step. Once I get about halfway through, the machine can finish on its own, so then I'll just reset it to automatic and let the machine do all the work. So click OK. So remember, I said we're going to embroider this upside down, so we actually need to change the orientation of this. So we're going to give it a little flip-a-roo. And we're going to just flip it upside down like that. All right, so that's good. It's flipped upside down. It's rotated. We didn't mirror it or anything like that. So it's rotated upside down, and that's good. So now let's add our hoop. So as I'm adding the hoop, I'm making sure this top layer of t-shirt goes over the arm, but the bottom layer of t-shirt is hanging underneath it. You have to make sure you pay attention to that. You don't want your t-shirt getting caught underneath there and then you embroider through both layers, because then you cannot wear it. All right, here we go. We got the t-shirt in place. I'm putting my hand inside to make sure everything is smooth. I don't have the t-shirt bottom bunched up. It is upside down. Here's my collar over here. If you have a bigger collar, you don't have to worry about it. You can have it up there, but a smaller collar for kids, you might want to avoid this getting stretched out. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm switching my machine to needle number 1, and then I'm going to press down on my needle, and I want this needle number 1 to come down on the midpoint mark. Okay, so that now looks nice and centered. Now I'm going to trace out the design. And what I'm going to look for right now is how high does this come up to the neck? Because right now I have my entire design centered on the midpoint of the shirt. I'm not sure if I want to raise it up a little bit to have it closer to the neck. So let me try that out. So I would say it comes about 2 inches down from the top of the neck, maybe a little bit more. I think that's okay. I think that's okay for a kiddo. So I'm going to leave it centered on the t-shirt. So now I'm going to run the first stitch, which is going to be an outline of the little bubble around our narwhal and around our 4. This is going to show us where we need to put the material for that in the next step. Okay, so it's a little tricky to see because I chose a white thread, but I have the outline here for that bubble. Now I'm going to grab the heat transfer vinyl and I'm going to cut off a piece that's big enough to cover that entire design. Heat transfer vinyl has a plastic covering over it. Make sure you remove that. You don't want to stitch that down. It's a pain to try to get off if you do. Okay, now I'm just going to lay my heat transfer vinyl over that design. If it helps, grab a couple pieces of tape and just tape it down. That way you don't have to worry about it moving around on you as the machine tacks this down. Okay, now the next step is going to tack down this vinyl, and it's also going to provide placement for the number 4 for a later step. All right, once that's done, I'm going to remove this from the machine and I'm going to trim down all of the excess of the vinyl. I can't believe I forgot to show you the most important pair of scissors for applique embroidery, these curved scissors. I'm so sorry. I'll make sure I have it mentioned in the beginning. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just trim down around the entire design, because later we're going to have a nice satin stitch that's going to cover these raw edges, but I need to get these raw edges as close as possible to the stitching, which is really hard to see because I used white stitching on white vinyl. All right, there we go. We have that trimmed down. So now we're going to take this back to the machine and we're going to run the next step. All right, so the next step is going to stitch out placement for our little narwhal. So just like before, we're going to take our next piece of heat transfer vinyl and just lay it over our design. Make sure it covers it completely. Go ahead and use some tape if you'd like. I know that this Cricut vinyl is on a roll, so it likes to roll up on you whenever you lay it down. So tape, I find, is pretty necessary with this type of vinyl, but not all vinyl. All right, next step is just going to tack this down. Once again, I've taken this out of the hoop and I'm just going to cut around the stitching. If you have a small iron and you feel more comfortable pressing your heat transfer vinyl after you cut it down each time, you can definitely do that. I'm going to wait till the very end and I'll give the whole shirt a nice press. All right, there's our little narwhal. Isn't that fun? I love heat transfer vinyl. All right, let's go put this back in the machine. No. You guys see what happened here? The bottom of my t-shirt got stitched into the stitching. Since this isn't a satin stitch, it's just a tack down stitch, I can cut this stitching very carefully with small scissors or a seam ripper to get the shirt out, and later steps when we satin stitch will still hold down the material just fine. But what a bummer. That's why you gotta check every single time you put your shirt in and out. You gotta pull it and make sure the fabric's not wrapped up underneath it, because oh boy. Yes, we got to be more careful moving forward. So now we're going to run the next step, which is placement for the little horn on the narwhal. And like I said, I'm using this little scrap piece of vinyl. It's not heat transfer vinyl, but it will work just fine. Here we go. Let's trim down this piece of vinyl. There we go. How cute is this? Okay, the next step is going to be for the last bit of applique. We're going to be doing the number 4 here. And for this last bit, I'm going to add the heat transfer vinyl for the number 4 and just tack that down. All right, last bit of applique to trim down, and then we can just let the machine do the rest of the work for us. Okay, now we're going to put this back in the machine, and we're going to switch the machine to automatic because the rest of this is just satin stitching and then detailed stitching on the narwhal, so we don't have to do anything else. I know applique can be kind of a lot of work depending on how many different things you have. We only have 4 here. It's not that bad, but if you're doing, 100 of these shirts, that's going to take you some time. But now we're in the nice part where the machine is just going to do the rest of the work for us. So here is what I noticed. As I was stitching that out, the vinyl, this blue vinyl here, was kind of ripping up as the stitches were going on the eye. That's just because of the type of vinyl this is. This heat transfer vinyl is more of like a plasticky vinyl. So the more stitching it gets, it's easier to rip. So I stopped the machine after one eye, and I'm going to press this real quick. So that way, if this is pressed into the shirt, it's less likely to rip and bubble up. So I'm just covering the whole design with a scrap piece of quill cotton. And then I'm going to take my iron and just place it over the area. My iron is a little too big for my hoop, but we'll make it work. So I'm just holding it down, and then I can rotate my hoop, hold it down like this, just doing my best to get as much of that blue heat transfer vinyl as possible adhered down so that I don't have to deal with it ripping. And again, this is just going to be trial and error. I think there's going to be some heat transfer vinyl that's better for this than others. So you just got to try it out. So this blue heat transfer vinyl is probably not the best one to use for shirts, but now we know. Okay, we're going to finish up this design. Alrighty, once it's all done, let's just take it out of the hoop and take a look at our shirt. Okay, now what I'm gonna do real quick is just trim around my design. Since this is a cutaway stabilizer, it will need to be, you know, cut away. All right, once I have all that stabilizer cut away, let me just turn it right side out and take a look at it. Oh, that's adorable. Isn't that cute? Oh, I think that's so cute. I wouldn't suggest this blue vinyl. It's a heat vinyl, but I wouldn't suggest it. But the white polka dot vinyl turned out great. So did this green sparkly one. It's just we just had a little bit of trouble with the blue one. That might have been user error. Probably is. Okay, so I'm just going to give this another press from the front. So I have it on my pressing mat here. If you have a heat press, obviously you're probably using that. But I'm just using an iron today. Got my scrap piece of quilt cotton here. I'm just going to lay that over the whole area. And now using an iron with no steam, I'm just going to press the heat transfer vinyl in place so that it sticks really nicely to my shirt and I don't have to worry about it coming up. Alrighty, there we go. The narwhal's a little crinkly, but that's okay. Okay, so now we can really quickly talk about cover up. So if we flip this inside out, you can see on the back here we have our little threads, we have our interfacing, and especially for kiddos, this feeling right here might drive them nuts. So we can add a little bit of cover up to help them out. So I'll have links for this down below, but this is just a super soft drapey material. So I just put it over my design and I'll grab some scissors and I'll just cut around the design. It doesn't have to look great. This is the inside of a t-shirt. So now I'm just going to center it over my design, making sure I'm covering up all of the thread and everything. I'm going to use a scrap piece of quilt cotton again, just for a little bit of extra help, and then I'll take my iron and just press this over it. And the cover up has a rough side and a really soft, smooth side. So the rough side is obviously the glue side, and the smooth side is the side that's going to be touching the person's skin. So you want the glue side down against the shirt, and I found this stuff heats up and sticks really, really well to shirts. So you shouldn't have to worry about this coming off in the wash or anything, but I honestly haven't washed a whole lot of shirts many times using this, so I can't say for sure if it'll stay for a long time, but it should. All right, there you go. So you see I just have it covered over here. It doesn't come up on the corners. It's really nice and so soft, so soft. I mean, it might actually be softer than the shirt. So now let's flip it right side out again. And there we go. Our little 4-year-old t-shirt ready to party. Isn't that adorable? I think that's so sweet. So how cute is this? It's so sweet. Oh, I love this so much. I don't have a little 4-year-old I can have model this for us, but it's just adorable. I'm gonna have to find somebody who I can gift this to. So I think that the placement for this is actually really good. It probably could have been a little bit higher. It probably could have been a little bit bigger. And the nice thing about Hooked on Applique is they have a lot of sizes for every single design. So I chose this size. I probably could have chose a bigger size and it probably would have, you know, I don't know. I still think this looks really good. I'm not the biggest fan of this vinyl, although it does give a very cool textured look. I think a kid would love that. I mean, a kid's just gonna rub against it all day. But I probably wouldn't suggest it again for applique on a t-shirt just because it does detach so easily. But the rest of the vinyl I used is perfect. Absolutely perfect. And honestly, I was so sure I was going to prefer heat transfer vinyl over like regular vinyl, like the vinyl we used for bags. And I don't know. I mean, this is more heavy. It's definitely a heavier duty vinyl, and so it has more weight to it. But I think like longevity, I think this is actually better because it is thicker and it has a woven backing. So when the satin stitch is, you know, going over the edges, it's actually becoming part of the fabric. It's not just piercing it. But no matter what you choose to use, vinyl, felt, heat transfer vinyl, this is a really, really fun project. So I hope any of you who have been wanting to make applique t-shirts, I hope that this tutorial helped you. I hope it inspires you to go out and make a whole bunch of them. There's a lot of trial and error with this. So let me know how you like to do this. Let me know what type of stabilizer you prefer to use. Let me know what kind of material you love to use. I'd really like to know, like, are there certain brands of heat transfer vinyl? There's certain types. Let me know down in the comment section below. I'm excited to make a whole bunch more of these t-shirts. I can see some fun OklaRoots ones. I think I'm gonna have to make some fun OklaRoots ones. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.